All right.
Teaching Tuesday.
Teaching Tuesday.
Hi, Audrey. I noticed you joined. We were doing a demo of the exhibit functionality Quentin's been working on.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It truly is. Did you have any questions for Teaching Tuesday?
No, I think I'm between interviews right now, so I'm not currently working on a project, but I always learn something here, so I'm here.
Great. Awesome. Did anyone else have a question for Teaching Tuesday? Everyone's lurking. No. Shauna, maybe? Look like you're thinking about it.
I have to go because I have to get ready for work, but otherwise I would have.
All right.
So see
Fair
you
enough.
on Friday.
Fair enough. I don't know. Anyone?
I heard a question about adding a the affidavit of indigency. I could probably use Teaching Tuesday for that. People wanted to use that. Or yesterday we were talking about wanting to have a recording for people customizing a question from basic questions. So just so we had that on recording. So those are two ideas.
So I know Regis is the one who has to do the affidavit of indigency. So is there if there's someone here who needs to do one of those two things, speak up and you will get help right now.
I like the idea of the other choice.
I think it won't take that long, Regis, to do the affidavit of indigency. And then we'd be done. You wouldn't have to wait for me.
Okay, I've been convinced. Let me just pull it up really quickly. So.
Regis has been our lab rat for so many Teaching Tuesdays. I feel like we should have like a counter at this point.
A drinking game. We'll just take, an afternoon, watch all the Teaching Tuesdays back to back. Take a sip every time.
That would be intense.
Yes, it would.
I picture a bunch of little gold stars next to Regis's name for every time he's volunteered.
The Dragon
been
Ball Z,
forced to volunteer.
Yeah.
Exactly. Can make a Snapchat filter, snap camera, whatever it's called.
I am all prepped up to share.
All right. So the first basic concept that, first of all, like we were just talking about the AL user bundle. So why don't we just look for that in your interview so you can see what's there now. And we're going to look for where it's defined. All right. So you can see here right now you have 3 items. You have the post-interview instructions, your actual main form, the late docketing statement, and then you have the exhibits the person uploaded. So all that we're going to do is think about where the affidavit of indigency would go inside that bundle. I guess another thing worth pointing out here is that we have 2 bundles, AL user bundle and AL court bundle. I don't know if anyone can guess what that might be doing there. And notice any differences about what's inside each bundle.
I have a guess.
Aubrey's raising her hand. Yeah.
The user bundle is what the user receives, including next steps instructions, and the court bundle is what the court receives. And the difference there is potentially like the cover sheet, but I don't think that's actually in our bundle. But they don't need the next steps instructions, so they don't get it.
Yeah, and Aubrey, how do you know that there's no instructions in the court bundle? Where are we looking at this in this object?
In the elements that are listed in the list with the square brackets I see post-interview instructions in the AL user bundle, but it is not included in the AL courts bundle.
All right, yeah, and we know it's a list. You already said it, Aubrey, but how do we know it's a list?
The square brackets, right?
Totally, you're totally
Okay,
right about
okay.
that.
I was like, I think I learned that last
Yeah,
week.
you are right. Yes. Okay. So so that is where we're going to add our affidavit of indigency document. And I think it might be helpful for us to pull in or to look on GitHub at another form that already does it. And I think a good one might be, you see, I think I integrated it with the name change, adult name change petition. So that might be a good place to look. I think if you look for petition in the search, you'll find it. Yeah, there we go. The second. So we're going to basically look at, yep, you're doing exactly right. We're just looking for the question file, the YAML file that has the content for the interview. So it's going to be the second one. And we're going to find some like the AL user bundle here in this interview. So you can just do control
find
F.
on the page, yeah.
Yeah. And we can really mirror what's happening here the same way in ours. So yeah, it's at the end there, yep, affidavit of indigency attachment. So that is the name of the affidavit of indigency file. So let's go ahead and put that in our bundle.
And what include package is that file in?
That'll be the next thing that we do. Well, let's do it one at a time. But yep, that's a good point. That's going to be our next step. So we're going to have to think about three things. So this is good context anytime you're trying to integrate two files together. And here I'm saying file, it could mean obviously a lot of different things, but what I'm talking about is the output document that someone gets. So if you're trying to combine multiple interviews, might be a way to think of it too. You need to know what the actual exhibit, or rather the attachment variable name is. So we've figured out that. We want to figure out what logic we're going to use to include that in our bundle, because it's optional, right? Like we don't want to send the affidavit of indigency in all circumstances. So someone tell us where, like when would we want to include the affidavit of indigency? You can answer, you probably thought about it.
I recall that it is attached to whether or not the user has an appeals docket number. I think that's how the appeals court presented that question. But I know there are additional questions related to finance, the user's finance as well.
Yeah, great. That's a really good point. So in this case, there's two circumstances, right? So there's, as you said, there's special appeals court form things that we need to think about. Like, do they even need to file an affidavit of indigency? And the second thing is we don't even send it in if they don't qualify for the affidavit of indigency, if they don't qualify for a fee waiver, right? So that's the financial part that you were thinking of. Let's see how it was done in the name change petition. And that will be a good starting point for us. So we're going to look for affidavit of indigency attachment dot enabled, because that's what controls whether it's part of the bundle or not. So we might just copy this whole code block and look at it and see if it fits our needs and how we have to change it. So let's, copy it in first. It doesn't matter where it goes inside your file, but it makes sense to obviously to keep it close to the related stuff. All right, so ask if qualifies for fee waiver. and is indigent. So let's see if we can think about what those two variables are, and then decide if those are the right ones for us. Or if there's anything else we need to add.
So should I look for this in the
Sure.
other?
So I don't know if you want to have a question like this. The fee waiver isn't very long. It takes maybe 5 or so screens. And if you don't qualify, you can get to that endpoint pretty quickly. But it's a bit invasive to be asked about your income. And if you're like, hey, I know I don't qualify, maybe you want to skip this. So this question, we can tell, is from this interview. It's not part of the fee waiver, the affidavit of indigency interview itself. So if you want something like this, you'd have to copy this into your interview too.
Okay.
Maybe you might want to try it and see what you think. You can always get feedback from our SME. For now, you could keep it together just so you can find it later. And then you might think about like how you want to rearrange it so that the questions are all grouped together, for example, but it's totally fine to just put it there for now.
Okay.
All right, so we know we're going to want to update the cost, right? So we're not changing our name. Let's change the things we already know. So to file a late docketing statement, right? That's the thing we're doing.
I see.
We change that. And then I don't know what the filing fee is. And I think the other important part, right, is we won't get this question unless they need to file it, I would assume. But it's only they only have to pay to file the late docketing statement if they're doing the first filing in this appeal, right? That's the real key. If they're responding to an appeal somebody else filed, there's no filing fee to respond. And if they're already filed the first document, but this is like the docketing statement, they already filed the actual appeal earlier, they would have had to pay the fee when they filed the actual appeal. So they don't have to pay the fee now either. It's like basically getting the case started is what triggers a fee. Anything that happens after the case has been started, there's no fee. So we might want to say something like that here, but probably we'd actually want to handle that differently by helping find out if we did that by figuring out if they had a docket number, right? That was the way we figured that out. So we can keep that as our condition. All right, well, that reminds us, you already brought up, Regis, there's one more condition we have to keep in mind, which is whether they have a docket number. They know their docket number, right? So let's see if we can, if you know what that is, we can pop that in, or we can scroll down on our variable list, or we can search for the relevant keywords and then come back here. And we're at line 420, so that helps us know where to jump back.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have the question structured to be a yes or no, but then it doesn't go anywhere because I hadn't had it attached to anything. So for the appeals docket number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's an if knows docket number.
Okay, yeah, so let's copy that in. Knows docket number.
So it's just like a basic.
Just copy just the variable itself, the part on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on line 420. Okay, so that'll be our first condition. We don't even want to ask the second ones if they do know their docket number. So right after the equal sign, we're going to paste that variable
here.
Yeah. And we want to invert it, right? We want to have, if they don't know their docket number,
okay,
then they need to pay a fee or get a fee waiver. So you can just put the word not in front of knows docket number.
You want an and where you were.
Yep. And then we want to figure out how we're going to combine these two things. So in this case, an and is really all you need. But just for clarity, I would also probably group the next two terms together with the parentheses. So that's clear that they're both subordinate to knowing the docket number, or not knowing the docket number rather. So, all right. Now, Michelle, you had mentioned that we need to figure out how we actually link this form. You mentioned the include statement. So do you want to explain what we should be looking for next?
Sure, but I was actually asking because I don't know which package it's in. But obviously the affidavit, the attachment is not something we have made ourselves. And I'm assuming from the way Quentin has been talking that it is existing in a different package that we might include. So I would go to the other document again, and I would find the includes blocks that are in there, and I would check them and compare them to the includes blocks that I had. So maybe let's go to that file.
So what keyword are we going to be looking for? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I can leave it to Regis. I said, so you look for include or includes include colon. I never remember which. There you go. And we can look and see if there are multiple of them on this page, but I think there's only one. It's 1 out of 1. So, and then, see if there's something that makes sense there. Or I don't know, like, can try it and see if it works.
That looks good, Regis. So yeah, basically you want to explain what you did to decide that was the one you wanted to copy.
Oh, I believe I already, when I was playing around with it.
Oh,
I commented it there.
All right. Yes, and the difference between those two packages is one is migrated to AL document and one is not. So that's why a transition thing. Okay, so I actually think we did everything right. It's always a miracle if it runs when you just did everything in series. So if we just try it.
Everybody cross fingers.
So what we've just done, like those 3 steps, that's the basics of combining any 2 interviews together. Thinking about the attachment variable, getting your include statement right, and how you want to decide if it's enabled or not enabled. And that's pretty much it. That's the purpose of like AL document. That's why we have all that like extra syntax, is to make that process of combining multiple interviews simpler.
There's one other part of the process that I would just mention so you're mentally prepared for it, which is when the questions show up to do with the affidavit of indigency, you want to see if that is the place you want the questions to be asked. And if not, then you're going to need to check the variables and call them yourself at the appropriate time.
That's a very good point. And actually, one 4th step, which I didn't mention at all, is you need to think about, is the interview that I'm including already set up to be included in another interview? Because if it has its own mandatory questions, that'll cause you problems. So you noticed, like when we went to include it, we included something called affidavit_body. That's not the same as the interview people click and run. It's already been set up so that one file has the mandatory questions and one file just has the ones that work in multiple interviews. So there's a little prep work, but if you're working with interview files that are already designed to be part of other interviews, you don't usually need to think about that. Yeah, we probably will want to think about what Michelle said, though, because it's better to trigger it explicitly where we want in the interview. So,
yeah, I think it probably would have been good to have it like trigger here.
I mean, it's also something to do in the plain language review or in the SME review, to think about that kind of stuff. So it's not always super crucial to figure it out right away. but it's good to figure out what variables they're going to need to trigger.
Yeah, for me, I would say like probably it's good at the towards the end of the interview. Like people want to get through the substantive purpose of it before they decide. They want to kind of use it as a way to explore whether they're doing the right thing, whether they want to do it, rather than be asked for their detailed income information before they've gotten their substantive thing done, usually. But
I see.
yeah, let's find out if you qualify. If you say yes to any of those, you'll qualify. So you could try, you might want to work through the branches and see what happens if you don't. But for now, just to confirm it works, we can just answer yes. Oh yeah, there's one more thing that's going to happen here. On this next screen, looks like it's actually just generating the document, but it might come back with a missing variable and then present us the next question. This is a fee waiver, right? So let's open it and see what happened. Is the affidavit of indigency attached there? Oh, of course, it just skipped all the questions. So we do need to really explicitly trigger those questions. Okay. The only thing it defined is the thing that we needed to decide if it qualified or not. So yeah, let's look back at that interview, the petition to change name, and find the interview order block this time and see how it triggered those variables needed to define the document. Okay, so it would be great if it started with interview order, but yeah, you can see here. Scroll down a little bit more. I think it was just called affidavit questions, ask affidavit questions. There we go. So that'll trigger all of the affidavit of indigency questions. And I think, yeah, we want to keep the if ask. Wait.
I'm
You're going to
curious.
want to change the look a bit. But, yeah, Michelle?
I'm curious as a non-legal person, is this like the affidavit? Because it says ask affidavit questions. Is this the only affidavit out there? Is the affidavit of indigency, or is that a category of type of document? Like, are there different affidavits? Yes, David is
there
not.
could be more than one affidavit, yeah. So I believe that is the right one in this case, but yeah, the variable name could probably be changed.
Sure. I was just, yeah. I can't tell when we've got categories and when we've got like names of individual things. Good to know. Thanks.
So you're going to want to change the ask if qualifies for fee waiver. So I think probably what happened there is that that's combining multiple variables, and just to make sure that if you change the logic, it's updated in both places. But you're going to basically want that to mirror the logic of the enabled being true, right?
And how you would discover that normally is you'd run it and it would say, hey, ask for whatever it said, affidavit waive, once affidavit waiver or whatever. It'd say that it couldn't find the definition. And then you'd want to either replace it with whatever you're defining as that definition, or you want to define that variable somewhere.
So you could copy everything on line 423, and obviously we're not going to have the is indigent part of this.
Okay.
But just the not knows docket number and then the ask if qualifies.
And we're replacing this part.
So that actually is the same. I was wrong. I couldn't remember from the name what it was. What we're going to want to put in front of it is the not knows docket number.
I'll just
Yeah, that works. You can delete either one. And then you're going to want to delete the parenthesis. Yep. Okay. It's good. One more thing we might want to do, and again, we can look at the petition for name change to see how it does it, is we're going to want to set the amount. So see where it says set indigency defaults on line 120. Let's copy that into our interview order block. And let's find where that's defined. Again, switch back to the petition to change name. So this will tell you, can you guess what this block is doing here?
No.
Okay. We're going to get to a screen now that we've set up that ask indigency, ask affidavit questions. We will get to a screen that lets us say what fees we want waived. And this is basically handling all of that for us. Why don't we copy the whole thing in? And I put it in our interview. And you're going to want to go back and change those numbers to match what you actually want to have defined for your interview.
Okay.
So less plug and play than we were thinking at first, but this is still, you're getting it done at least. It's recorded now for other people. All right, you can get rid of the ones that you just kind of can guess you don't want. I think all that you really need is the filing fee, and you're going to want to get the right number for the filing fee. Okay. So you can probably delete the other ones. And you can see it saying, yeah, other and service, those ones that say. And I kind of suspect the cost of an expert witness is there in actually has an important role. I think it's because of the way that that screen is triggered. I'm going to leave that there. And the case name is not going to be in the matter of, it's going to be something else. The case name is like so-and-so versus so-and-so for an appeals case, right?
Yeah.
So we could probably just remove that whole line or maybe comment it out. So it was as a reminder to like, I might need to do something for that, but let's leave it alone for now. And then docket number 0 being empty. That's good because yeah, there's no docket number yet in this case. So that looks good to me now. We might need to do a new save. Yeah, try just doing a save and see if that's good enough. And then hit back, yeah. Okay, so now we should get some more follow-up questions besides just the benefits question. And there are going to be some things that are set as defaults. So. Doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like it's just trying to generate the documents. Why don't we just try once more with the save and run to make sure that something might have already been set that we didn't want to have set yet, in order to make that change be visible. Okay, so something we might want to do is to change the order of our include statements, because I'm just seeing it said earlier, like it's asking about waiving fees in the who's on which side of the case question, and you want it to not use that language on that screen. Because the main purpose of them filing this document is not about waiving fees. That's kind of the secondary purpose. Interesting. Okay, let's see if we can figure out where that's coming from. Screen where it's showing a map, I would guess. Maybe the court page. Oh, can we see exactly what variable? Scroll down a little bit. So there's no location defined. This is weird. Let's go up to the top of the interview and let's just see what was the question it was trying to define again. It was trying to define tried geolocating. So let's copy that in, try geolocating equals true, and put that into our interview order block. For now, not necessarily a good permanent habit. So maybe you want to put like a to-do next to it. I'm curious whether that's something that's happening in other interviews, something to do with changing from geolocate to geocode. We're going to want to have that be before ask affidavit questions, not after. Or it can be in its own code block. That's actually probably better. Make it its own code block. And it's going to be a code block. So you have to add code and indent it.
Or pipe after code.
Yep. And indent it once as well. Okay. That should clear up that error, I believe. Although I don't know quite yet why that was happening. It's telling me that the address isn't valid in some way for to be geocoded. And I don't know why that would be. Because I think you typed to use the Google autocomplete for the address, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why it didn't work, but that's what it's based. That's the issue, some way. Good old 123 Antwerp Street, the alphabetically, numerically first address in Boston.
I really want to make a joke about somehow addressing this issue, but the meta joke was all I could come up with.
Would we just have to tell you to zip it, David?
Oh, I like that. So good. I look forward to us being in person, Quinn.
So now you can see more of this is filled in than there was before from those other questions that we were asked about. So, all right, that is it now. Now we've recorded the whole process. A lot of it was really specific to the affidavit of indigency, but that's okay, because that's the kind of stuff hopefully we helped figure out, like, how do you troubleshoot, how do you find that kind of thing. So
Everything you include is going to have some specific stuff. I think that was really useful for just how to hunt those things down.
Yeah. And also, when you run into those things, don't ever be afraid to ask, because you might get stuck on something that isn't written down very well or documented very well. So, but someone can answer it for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool. Look at that. 4
Thanks.
minutes to spare on Teaching Tuesday.
So
Okay.
should we go back and do this for all of the appeals forms? This is probably a different
No.
meeting, but
I don't think so, because I think the appeals forms that need this, other than this one, already have it. And I think it's only one
Okay.
other. Because the first thing that Regis was talking about, like the docket number, that was basically like, if this is already in appeals, they've already done this, right?
that makes
So
sense.
like, depending upon the procedural history, they may or may not need to do this because they would have already gone through the process. But I mean, we can check to make sure that we aren't missing any of them. That's just my recollection, is that.
I think this is the first appeals form that we did after AL document. We migrated to that. So the other appeals forms have a different way of doing it, but they still did do it. Because that was their whole thing. It had to have a fee waiver in order to be filed by email. So that's something else for you to check on, Regis, actually, is to make sure on the download screen that the email button only shows if it's, I don't know if you even have an email button yet, but if you do, it only should show if they qualified for a fee waiver and they don't have an attorney. Those are the two qualifying triggers.
Otherwise, they get to print it out.
Yep. Well, they have to use e-file MA, actually. They cannot print it and deliver it. It's
That's right.
filing.
They have to print to PDF. I don't know. I'm pushing too hard. Never mind. They have to. They can't use our emails. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Okie dokie.
That's it.
All right.
Great.
I'm going to
Awesome.
stop the recording.